Welcome to our trig lesson. Feel free to pause the lesson, make sure closed captioning's on. This is quite tricky, and I promise you, by the time you try your third question, you'll be much faster at it. So let these first few take some time, go slow through the steps. It's unavoidable. But you'll find that every question does follow the correct steps and that you'll be getting the right answer every time. It will get faster. So our step one with any kind of a trig question is to label the sides. So that's where we're going to start, is just how do we label them? So we're going to label them first with the hypotenuse, second with the opposite, and lastly with the A for adjacent. And adjacent means like beside. So our first one is look at where's the hypotenuse. So like in Pythagorean theorem, we're looking at the right angle and we're going across from it. So that one's going to be our hypotenuse. And this is the length of the side that we're referring to. The second thing we're going to label is the O for opposite. So we go from the angle that's given, because there's always an angle that's given or one that we're finding. And we're going to go, let's use a different color. We'll go like this. So we'll call that O for opposite. And the one that's left over, because there's always going to be one side left over now, we can just call A for adjacent. And that means it's beside the angle. So let's do this again for the other triangles. So we'll go from the 90. We'll call that H. We're going to go from the angle and call that O for opposite, because now that's the side opposite the angle. And the side that's left over is A. I can't stress how important labeling the sides are correct, because you can do all the right steps in trig, but if you label them wrong right from the beginning, it'll be off. So from the 90, we'll go across to the H. From the angle, go across to the O. And last side A. So no matter how we orient the triangle, we can always find our H, our O, and lastly our A. So it all depends on where the right angle is and where the actual angle is that's given or that we are going to be solving for. So here we've got a question where we have one angle and we have one side, and we're asked to solve for a side. So in Pythagorean theorem, you would have both two sides and solve for a third. This is a mix. This is a blend between the angles and the sides together. So that's where we have to pull in trig. These are our trig ratios. This is what they would call Sohcahtoa. So SOH CAH TOA. And it's really important to kind of put them out like this. For me, I would write them down every time I do a trig question. And so, again, step one, let's label our side. So now we have a sense of what the value for H is, what the value for O is, and what the value for A is. A is the adjacent side. We don't know it. We don't want to know it. That's... we don't really care about the A. It's not something that we're going to be solving for. So what we want to do now is pick which of these three ratios match what we're given. So what do we have? We have H. We have the angle. And what do we want? We want the O for opposite. And if you want, you could even write OPP if you want. So now that we have the H and the O, we have to kind of look inside these and say, oh, hey, you know what? This is the one that has H and O. So this guy has A and I don't know what A is and I don't want it. Again, the A is found here, but O and H are here. So we're going to cover up the thing that we want. So we put our finger on top of what we want. And so we've got our ratio now. The O is going to be equal to S for sine of the angle times H. So each one of these letters that are in there represents those buttons that have been on your calculator: sine, cos, and tan. And they also represent the angle. So sine of the angle, cos of the angle, tan of the angle. And we have H for hypotenuse and O for opposite. So coming up with the actual formula is, I think, the main, challenge to these questions. So from here now, we're going to just substitute and solve and make sure our calculators are giving us the right answers. So let's substitute in what we know. So we're going to do sine 30. The angle here is 30. And the hypotenuse is 12. I can't stress this enough as a helpful hint to press equals after you find out what the sine 30 is. And the reason being is some calculators will do this. They will do 30 times 12. That's not, doing the sine of that huge number is not going to be fun. So let's just find out what is the sine of 30, figure out that answer, press equals or whatever you need to do, and then times it by 12. So we should get O, the value for O being 6. And again, we can check to make sure, is that number less than the hypotenuse? And it is, so we can feel pretty good about this number. Keep that in orange. So that's finding a side. There's a lot of great examples in our notes, and I would encourage you to try those as well. This is finding an angle using trig. So here I've gotten two sides. I don't need the third side. I need to find the angle. We're going to do the exact same steps. So we're going to label our triangle first. So from the angle that we want, this is O for the opposite side. That's a little tricky because we don't really have any angles, but this is the one that we're looking for, so that becomes the O, and the side that's remaining becomes the A. So we want to identify what do we have and what do we need. So here we have A, we have the adjacent side, we have O, or opposite. We know that's 2.9. What do we want? We want the angle. So we want that theta, or that angle there. So we're going to find the triangle here, the ratio that matches the O and A. So no, we don't see that O and A. No, A and H. Here we got O and A. Great. We're going to cover up the thing that we want. So here I want the angle. So I'm going to cover up the T. And it shows me now that O is over A. O is over A. So when I write that out, I'll have tan of the angle is equal to O over A. So initially here we had multiply because they were beside each other, but when they're on top of each other, it's a divide sign. So tan of the angle, we don't know. Now we're substituting in, so we should have 2.9 on top, 5.3 on the bottom. Let's solve for that. And it's really important to keep all these decimals, like as many decimals as you can, so that you're going to have a more accurate answer. So yeah, I would probably keep that many. But what we have now is the tan of the angle. We need to do the inverse tan, or basically untan this, because this angle is not 0.5 degrees. So just going to kind of go like this. We want to look on our calculators for this button. Now, that might be a second function. It might, you might have a button that looks exactly like that. But if we do tan, the inverse tan of 0.5471691, then we get 28 point, let's call it 28.7. And 28.7 is a nice, good, healthy number, kind of a nice, thick number that would be suitable for this position here. So this, just take some time to look through your calculator, do the examples that are in the notes, just to make sure that your calculator's working well for you. Rad is bad. Grad is bad. Make sure neither of those are being shown on your calculator, only DEG, or like a D sign. Because with these trig functions, if you have radians on your calculator, it will give you not the correct numbers. So best wishes, good luck. Email me if you've got questions.